Okay, my next guest recently retired from the Fiesta Tableware Company, but was originally hired at the Hall China Company in 1981 as a design assistant to the nationally known ceramic designer, Don Schreckengost. He followed in Shrek's footsteps and became the design director of Hall China. Please give a warm East Liverpool welcome to Mick Bowdler. Just be careful, I have to step up there.
We have a big crowd here.
I know.
Are they friendly?
They are friendly.
Oh no, he's not friendly.
One, maybe not. Technical difficulties, right? Mick, thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
I know you brought some stuff, so don't let me forget to, we'll show it.
Sure.
But I got a couple questions, so I want to do that.
Okay.
Our earliest potters came from Staffordshire district in England in the 1840s, and over 100 years later, your story is kind of familiar to that, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you came to work at Hall.
Well, I was at the North Staffordshire Polytechnic in Staffordshire, in Stoke-on-Trent area, and I did my bachelor's in textile design. Actually, I thought myself as a graphic designer at that time, and after my 3 years of that, decided I really wasn't ready to go into the marketplace or the workplace. I was must have been lazy, I guess. I like being a student, so I applied for the industrial ceramic course at the same college, and luckily I was accepted, and I did my 2 years of industrial ceramics there. Basically taking my designs on a bigger scale into a smaller scale. I did some shape work on the course and found that maybe shape was more my thing versus a graphic designer. And the last two designers actually Hall China were from the same college.
Really?
I was at, yes. So they would bring back stories, or I would hear stories of how well they're doing. They got a big house on top of the hill and looking over the lake and everything. I'm going, man, I really want to, see some of that and work in the United States. And so that kind of got me thinking about working in America. And through the same person that got them the position at Hall China, I was lucky enough to
So that's what actually brought you to Hall? Is your friends that work
Yes.
there? They worked there first?
Yes. I wanted to work in the States. I don't know why, but,
we're glad you did.
Well, yes, I'm glad I did too, but we have an abundance of designers, and it's a very competitive market in England, and I don't know. You just look back on those days and think, why did you make that decision? And best thing I ever did was to come here.
I'm almost afraid, but what was your first impression of East Liverpool?
Well, my wife is English. She came with me in 1981, and while we were waiting for acceptance from Hall China that I got the position, we would go into the library and we would look at a map of America and look at Ohio and a little dot East Liverpool, and had no idea what we were really getting into. And it kind of didn't start off that well, because we came in September, a week before. We came for a week before we came officially in November, and they had hired a car for me to drive. Of course, I didn't drive then. I was 24 and I was in college, didn't have any money, so of course my wife had to drive, and that was a shock for her, because she was a young girl at that time, and
to drive here first?
Driving on the other side of the road, and coming.
It's funny, we think the same way, don't we?
Coming from Pittsburgh through Midland and seeing all the steel mills and stuff like that, and no disrespect to Midland, but it wasn't the most quaint looking place along the river. But and because when we come from, my wife and I, it's very picturesque. We have small little villages. You see it on TV, and you see those kind of places. And that's kind of where we came from. So, visually it was like a shock. I think my wife cried all night that first night.
Well, we are glad you're here.
Yes.
So, how did you manage, like, buying a house and getting started that way? Did you, when you first started working there, obviously the pay was a lot less than it is today.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we came with very little money. In fact, we came with $500 at that time, and we had our passports and their contract, and we put them inside the back of the seat of the airplane, and we get off the Pittsburgh airport, and we actually at that time we had we were driven to our house behind the factory, and we realized, where's their money? Where's their contract? We had left them on the airplane, and they'd gone on to San Francisco, and it was like, wow, you know, didn't start off that well, but they managed to be able to get all that back and so forth. So we were fortunate that the company had rented, or not rented, but they owned a lot of the houses at the back of the factory, and one came available. So we were very fortunate to be able to move into that house. So yeah.
Well, what was it like to work with Don Schreckengost?
Well, you know, as a young designer, not knowing a whole lot about life, especially in a new country, and working for such a prestigious company as Halls, it was a remarkable experience. I mean, he was, I think he was in his early 70s when I arrived, and most people were retired by then, but not Don. He just loved his work, and was working for Halls for 3 days a week at that time, and he just was such a unbelievable individual, not just talented, but as a person, and his stories of his life. I mean, it was just wow. You can't dream about a situation where your first job is with a person of his talents and knowledge. It was unbelievable.
I didn't know him at all. So.
Yeah.
So where do you get your designs or your ideas for your designs?
Well, it wasn't an easy time when my wife and I came. It was in the early 80s, 81, and it was high interest rates, and you know, we went through, you know, a recession during that period of time, and so most of the designs were basically salespeople. We had our own force of salespeople going out into the marketplace, talking to restaurants and hotels and people like that, basically bringing ideas back from them. So it was a little less pressure on me to actually come up with new ideas. The ideas sort of came to me, so I had to interpret those ideas from our salespeople and try to understand what the customer really wanted, and so I would then do drawings, and they would take those drawings to the customers, and you know, they would tweak it here and there. So for most of the designs were sort of market driven, and not me sitting in my little
just
tower
coming up with ideas. I mean, there was times where internally we would have meetings, and we would come up with we would decide that we wanted a new dinnerware line, and we would then, you know, certainly Shrek and I, we would bounce ideas back and forth and come up with that. But for the most part, it was really market driven. A lot of the ideas, yeah. I see you called him Shrek too, so I don't feel bad now.
Well, actually, I didn't to his name. I always called him Don.
Don?
Yes, I did. Yes.
So you've been in the design business a long time. So how's it changed from the time that you started to when you retired?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of change in it, or in how they did it, or?
Well, it was all 2D. We didn't have computers at that time, so it was taking an item like this and trying to visually create that as a design. You would do a sketch that would be that profile, sketch be that profile, sketch that profile, and sketch that profile. So you'd have these isometric drawings of the item, and so it was a lot of visually trying to picture the item in your head, of what this looked like on a flat surface. As time went on, and I have to credit Mr. Sale for this, when Don passed away,
I think it was 2001, because our studio was at the back of the factory, above maintenance. He said, so when Don passed away, he said, I don't want you all the way over there. I want to bring you closer to the main office. So they gave me an office there, and he says, I don't want you drawing on paper anymore. I'm going, wait a minute, that's all I've done all my life is sketch on paper. That's what my left hand is for. And he says, no, I want to get you a computer, and we're going to do 3D design. And they gave me 1 day of training. I had a guy come in, and you remember those days, Bill?
Yeah.
He came in, sat there for a day, and then left, and I didn't see him ever again. And so it was up to me to learn the program.
He caught on really fast. He was a great student. For somebody that did everything with pen and pencil and paper, he was not intimidated by that software and did great things pretty quickly. I got to give him credit.
Yeah. So let me ask you about this. Okay, this is yours, right?
It is.
And the design, I'll let you handle it. So tell us about it.
It's not a very interesting piece. We call it a pasta bowl. It was, I think, driven by the market needs. Somebody wanted a 22-ounce bowl, which is basically, we would calculate the capacity at that point right there and how much liquid you could get in a piece like this. The weight was important. The wide rim was important. So there was a lot of restrictions on this piece. So obviously, with the ounce capacity and the width, the outside diameter kind of generates itself, and the profile is just something that, of course, it has to not fall over. You can't have a narrow rim in the bottom, so you're restricted there a little bit. So, but there was a typical item that Hall China would do. We had numerous pasta bowls and items that mostly food was served on and brought to the table or cooked in.
So is that something that would have been 3D printed? I mean, your design for that?
This was not back then.
Okay.
This was well, it's fairly easy to do a plate because you just do a round circle. Even any of you guys could probably draw a circle like that, and then you have a profile there, and it pretty much takes care of itself. So this is an easy piece, and obviously it's a very easy piece to do as a 3D thing.
Well, let me get this other piece because I'm interested in this. Now, I'll hand you that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, sure.
I'm sorry. I don't know if this will move closer or not.
It's not connected.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is
Well, that's why.
This is one of my favorite pieces. It's the 100th anniversary piece that we did for Hall China from 1903 to 2003 at that time, and of course it had to be a teapot, the item, because we're known for our teapots. So this was basically taking elements from many teapots that we had made over time, from the 20s, the 30s, and 40s, taking little elements from those teapots and putting them all together into one teapot. And it was kind of rewarding because a lot of the collectors actually picked up on that. So my idea seemed to have hit the right spot on this particular item, and the decal around it is just a fancy gold leaf decal, but it's one of my favorite pieces.
And you designed that?
I did design this one, yes.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It's a funny story, actually. My son and daughter, they're plate turners also, and you would know what that means, right? So they've grown up and got their own families, and they would be out at restaurants, and they would send me pictures of the pieces, turn it over after they ate the food, obviously. They would turn it over, and it would be Hall China, and they would say, did you design this, Dad? And I'd go, no, I don't think so. And it got to a point where they would say, well, what did you do at Hall China?
That's awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bowdler.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Be careful stepping down.
Okay.